In U.S. copyright law, there is a thing called fair use. And in this concept of fair use, you are allowed to use copyrighted materials if you are providing commentary over that copyrighted material. And your case looks even better if this were to go to, say, the Supreme Court. Your case looks even better if you're using copyright material that is not fiction, fantasy, it's real, like sports. It's something that could be used in news coverage. So I'm putting my face right now, I'm in a tiny square above Nick Kyrgios. Do you see Nick Kyrgios? Roll the clip. This is an example of fair use because I am commentating on how Nick Kyrgios below is egging on the crowd in Mexico after beating Rafael Nadal and kind of being rude. We could say he's being rude.
Who knows? Nadal.
Now, my question to you is, who is it over at ATP Media that we could say is being rude for removing my last video celebrating Roger Federer's 100 titles? Very rude. If you're watching, whoever you are, trying to figure out if you should try to get YouTube to remove this very video as well, comment below what I did wrong so I can do a better job next time.
That's not really cool, man.
Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we talk about Nick Kyrgios and what happened in Acapulco. So much stuff came out of there, not just how amazing his play was, not the dispute, the now battle, maybe we could say bad blood between Nadal and Nick Kyrgios, but also why I think Nick Kyrgios could become the most hated man in tennis. And one article that I found on the internet, it's a very compelling, very interesting article I'm going to share with you today that says Nick Kyrgios could possibly become the most hated athlete in the world. El Mundo. Also, we'll talk about who moved up in the ATP rankings and a little tiny bit about Indian Wells. Nick Kyrgios, in my opinion, is a Trumpian-like character. Love him or hate him, he is must-see TV. And if you find yourself hating him so much, like I'm sure many people do to the U.S. president aforementioned, if you hate Kyrgios so much that you don't want to see him, you will still see him. He will pop up in your feed. I mean, just think about it. Before anyone comments below that this is crazy, my idea I have here, just think about it. Take any controversial thing Nick Kyrgios has said and do it in a Trump voice. Like the famous match with Stan Wawrinka, where on a changeover, Nick Kyrgios went up to Stanislav the Manislav Wawrinka and said something like, "I hate to tell you, Stan, but Kukinakis banged your girlfriend. Hope that doesn't throw your focus off on your serve, okay?"
Just what went through your mind in making a statement like that?
You know, I thought, he was getting a bit lippy at me, so I don't know. It's just in the moment sort of stuff. But yeah, I didn't really know. I don't really know. I just said it.
Nick, we'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. That's it.
and there's another thing I'm going to get to in a minute that Kyrgios posted on the Instagram and accused Nadal of being a PED, performance enhancing cheat. Can anyone tell me that's not a little Trumpian? Anyways, we'll get to all that. First things, I would just want to say, Nick Kyrgios' performance in Acapulco was incredible. He did everything. The way he used the drop shot. By the way, I have a comment from the video that's no longer on the internet, thanks to ATP Media. Somebody there. I don't blame the ATP as a whole. You know our mission here. We're helping grow the sport of tennis, and that means we're helping the ATP. So we're on the team of the ATP. I'm sure they'll punish the person responsible for lashing out at this great show. This is from Alns Janthana, I hope I'm saying it right. Matt, please be the first person to comment on your show about the revolutionary tactic that Kyrgios employed in beating Nadal, Wawrinka, and Zverev. He doesn't even know what he has done will change the game of modern tennis. What is the main strength of these types of players? Answer, defensive retrieving skills. Problem, no matter how hard you hit a ball in the middle of the baseline and service line short ball, players who stand 4 meters behind the baseline will retrieve and make you hit another ball. Eventually, you will miss. Well, Kyrgios did was absolutely amazing. By simply drop-shotting rather than whacking, even if the drop shot is mediocre, the defender is hitting up on the ball from the midcourt, which is difficult to control. The next shot can be a sitter for you. Amazing, amazing millennia. Now, I don't know if that's going to revolutionize the sport, but I have no problem with all the drop shots Kyrgios hit. It was pretty incredible the way he used the drop shot so effectively throughout the week. Of course, he threw in his underhand serve on Nadal, which I also have no problem with. And he threw in his reverse tweeners at random points in each match just about. I have no problem with that either. Nick Kyrgios, like I said, he's must-see TV, and whether he's the bad guy or he has a turnaround and he becomes the great good guy, you know what I mean? If Nick Kyrgios says, I've been doing soul-searching and I'm tired of being this guy, I want to be a good person, as long as he's winning, it's good for the sport of tennis. And in my opinion, we've been waiting for a bad guy for a long time. I like now that there's this rivalry where we pretty much we almost can guarantee that Nadal kind of hates Nick Kyrgios, or at the very least, hates playing him. So before I get into this article from golfdigest.com of all places by I'm about to say a young man, I don't know who he is, Hector Vivas. This is a great article. Nick Kyrgios could become the most hated athlete in the world. It's speculative, but it's very fascinating. And we're going to get into that. But first, let me just, in case you didn't hear this, Nick Kyrgios hints at changes after revealing pre-final jet skiing jaunt. Nick Kyrgios, hours before playing in a final of an ATP 500 tournament, was jet skiing. Because why not? He's Nick Kyrgios. He's freaking crazy. Kyrgios said that the time may have come for him to take action in order to kick on. I went jet skiing at 5:30 p.m. before playing Zverev, so I don't think that's what a top 10 player would do. I'm very lucky to be in this position. I need to be way more disciplined, way better professionally, and do the right things. I don't even have a coach. Maybe I'll start there. It's hopefully an example for people who are struggling and getting to some places you don't think you can get out of. If I can do it, you can do it. I was really down and out, didn't know what I was going to do, but you have a week like this and things can change. Now, call me a skeptic, but we've seen Kyrgios play well before. We've seen him do it plenty of times. None of us necessarily expect things to change, but as you will hear in this article from Mr. Hector Vivas, if things do change, it could have severe repercussions across the sporting world. Also, I'm curious to point to this line. It's hopefully an example for people who are struggling and getting in some places you don't think you can get out of. If I can do it, you can do it. Kyrgios has like two sides. He's, he's going shh to the crowd after he beats Nadal. He's asking more, give me more, boo me. I love it. I want to be the bad guy. And then he has this side where, he has a charity, or he wants to be an example to people who are struggling with, he doesn't say what, I'm guessing depression. Maybe Kyrgios has been depressed. Which side is the real Kyrgios? I think both sides can be true at the same time. I don't think he's a totally evil character in tennis, but he sure is good at acting like one. That one's for you, ATP media guy. Again, we're friends. Great friends of the ATP here. Our mission is their mission. This is great. This is 2 whole pages. I've never read so much from a single article. It's hard not to read this whole thing, but of course I won't do that. I won't bore you with that. Although, I don't think it would be too boring. It's very good. Mr. Goat got such a kick out of this that he's paralyzed from laughter upstairs in a food coma. Well, he says after Nadal loses, Kyrgios, if you didn't see it, 5 points in a row, down 6-3 in a tiebreak. 3 match points. 2 of the match points he saved are freaking drop shots. A couple balls he hit in that 5-point streak hit the net. I mean, it was crazy. Nadal might have been upset at Kyrgios' tactic of serving underhand. Complaints about Rafa's pace, which I'm with Kyrgios on that one. Play at the server's pace, I will say, is a slight caveat. There were a couple points where it seemed like Kyrgios was playing so fast that you couldn't really expect the returner to get ready that quick. But we all know Rafa can take his time. So I'm going to lean more on Kyrgios' side on that one. Or maybe Rafa was offended by the Aussies' post-victory antics, which included putting a hand behind his ear to taunt the crowd as they showered him with booze, which he loved. Afterward, even more unusually, Nadal had harsh words for his opponent. He is a player who has enormous talent. He could win any Grand Slams, fight the top positions of the ranking. But there is a reason why he is where he is. He lacks respect for the public, the rival, and towards himself, said Rafa. Now, Hector nails it right here when he says, by Rafa's standards, that's the equivalent of a slew of expletives followed by a fist fight. And while it was obviously the product of bitterness and frustration, he was also dead on the money. 2 nights later, in the semifinals against John Isner, Kyrgios had a break point at 5-all in the first set and chose that moment to taunt the crowd and take another shot at Rafa. And that's when Kyrgios started yelling into the crowd, where are you Rafa fans at? Let's all get on a plane and go to Indian Wells so I can beat your homeboy Rafa all over again. Would you like that? And this time, Mexico's going to pay for it. Again, anything Kyrgios says, do it in a Trump voice. interesting experiment. Against Sasha Zverev in the final, Kyrgios decided to hit a ground stroke from between his legs, just for the hell of it. It was classic Kyrgios, flippant, insulting to his opponent, infuriating, and impressive all at once. Again, Hector nails Kyrgios. That is exactly Kyrgios. He lost that game, then served out the match to capture his second title. After winning the serve, he shushed the crowd. And, I remember when Tomas Berdych did that after beating Nadal a long time ago. And people really hated Berdych, but he decided he didn't want to stick with that and less hated in the future. Although he is a skull now. So now that the 23-year-old Aussie has captured his fifth title, let's run down a few facts about him, starting with the positive, and then, of course, we'll get to the negative. Number one, when he's not injured or disinterested, Kyrgios is the best player of his generation and, not hyperbole, one of 2 or 3 best players in the world. Based on talent alone, he represents the best hope of the younger generation to finally overcome the oxygen-sucking dominance of the Big Three. Happy he said Big Three and not Big Four. Along with Kyrgios' talent, he's an unbelievable pressure player, as he showed yet again in Acapulco, with 3 straight nail-biting victories against Nadal, Wawrinka, and Isner before the final. And let me point out something really quick. I don't know if the match finished this way, but I remember at one point in the match, Kyrgios was out-acing Isner. And let's not fail to point out, Kyrgios did a really good job returning the Isner serve. Kyrgios, like I said before, can do anything and everything in this sport of tennis, which is why when we get to the very interesting and exciting conclusion of Mr. Hector Viva's article, you will see what that could manifest into. 3, he's one of those players who, even on a bad day, can save himself with his, some word I can't pronounce, serving ability. You know at Coffee Break Tennis, we don't like to use overly complicated and fancy words. So 3 things that are good. And again, Nick Kyrgios has a Pete Sampras-like legendary serve when his brain is switched on and he's engaged. Another amazing thing about Kyrgios, the guy can hit drop shots like he's Fabrice freaking Santoro. Maybe not that good, but pretty good with the drop shot. Can serve like Pete Sampras, is 6'4", super athletic, can move around the court like he's Gael Monfils. I think it's just Gael Monfils, but I keep adding Gael. Somebody said that. And the bad. Let's get to the bad. Unmotivated, grumpy, utterly committed to self-sabotage, which can be entertaining when he's doing that and then ends up winning. Because don't forget, in the first set against Nadal, Kyrgios looked like he was going to quit. There's one changeover where he's telling, again, try it with the voice. I wish I had the exact quote here. Do I have it somewhere? Yeah. Kyrgios said to the umpire on one of the changeovers, he goes, "I feel sick. If I forfeit, the fake news media will blow up. I'll be booed off the court. I'm going to try to play a couple more games, I guess." So think about Nadal. Nadal is the opposite of Nick Kyrgios. Nadal is structured. Nadal has to have his water bottles in order. Remember that time Lucas Rosol knocked over one of Rafa's water bottles on the changeover? I mean, he is a real jerk. Kyrgios is a little different. Kyrgios is in some ways very likable. It's very confusing for the tennis fans. Anyways, Nadal needs his water bottles in order. Nadal doesn't even know if Kyrgios is going to finish the match or not. After you hear that on the changeover, how do you not have that in the back of your mind? You know, Nadal double faulted when he had those match points in the end in tiebreaker. That was 100% Kyrgios. Kyrgios got inside Nadal's head. No doubt about it. Number 2, Kyrgios is of the bad. Kyrgios' focus can be abysmal, which helps explain his record of underachievement in Grand Slams, where he's made just 2 quarterfinals and hasn't advanced past the 4th round since January 2015. He's prone to giving up games, sets, even matches. Number 3, he has, through no fault of his own, a very cocky, sneering face. If you're in an uncharitable mood, you can even say Kyrgios has a punchable face. Now, Hector's taken a little far. I'm starting to sense that Hector doesn't like Kyrgios very much. I like Kyrgios a little bit, but I've felt this way. Well, I haven't felt like Kyrgios is punchable, but I felt very strongly like I don't like Kyrgios at times watching him play. But he gets great ratings. Even Kyrgios' hair seems designed to present an aggressive, confrontational vibe. He's like an angrier Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't know who that is, so just kidding. But I don't know much about soccer. 4, he sees no problem with playing the showman, even when it would be obviously disrespectful of his opponent, as we saw in the final against his friend Zverev. But if you piss him off, watch out. He once told Stanislav the Manislav Wawrinka's law that another player had slept with his girlfriend, as we already covered earlier in the show. Yeah, in case you didn't know about that, I didn't make that up. That's real. Now, Kyrgios didn't say it in his Trump voice, but he did say it. They had to be separated in the locker room afterwards so Stanislav wouldn't punch him, which could have been interesting in itself. In that sense, talking about how they had to be separated so they wouldn't fight, Kyrgios has a near-toxic streak of dish it out but can't take it petulance. That is very unlikable about Kyrgios. The narrative surrounding Kyrgios, one which has practically solidified from its earlier liquid state now, and this is how I've felt for a long time, and many of you, I'm sure, comment below if you felt this way, goes like this. For all of Kyrgios' gifts, his mentality isn't up to the challenge, and we'll look back on him as someone who could never quite rise to the highest levels. He's already been cast as one of the sport's greatest what-ifs. He's only 23. If there's an alternative narrative, it involves transformation. He matures, becomes more like Rafa, sheds the fickleness and youth in order to reach his zenith. And here it is, the big payoff, the final paragraph. But it doesn't always work out that way, does it? Remember, he's 23 years old. There's a lot of time for him to be one of the most talented guys around, and maybe some next-gen players not able to beat him, and maybe some of the greats, the Djokovic, Nadals, and Federers of the game, to be a lot older. Where are those guys going to be in 7 years? Kyrgios will be 30. Kyrgios could be very good if he started working on his fitness a little better at age 30. It doesn't always work out that way. Most tennis fans, myself included, this is Hector Vivas again from golfdigest.com, don't understand Nick Kyrgios, but we understand the overall effect, which ranges from nettlesome to inflammatory. Our only solace at the moment is that he hasn't cracked the big time. Again, I think Hector doesn't like him too much. Acapulco is one thing, but imagine for a moment, and I invite all of you to imagine, Kyrgios takes that act to a Grand Slam, what we saw in Acapulco, actually wins, dethroning a few of our heroes along the way. Imagine him toppling Federer. A lot of people wouldn't like that, but they sure would watch it. Then his profile will rise. He'll stand a chance to become not just the most hated man in tennis, a title he basically has already achieved, but perhaps the most hated man in all of professional sports. As the gatekeepers, Rafa, Nadal, Djokovic, grow older and Kyrgios rises, it's more likely than you think. Oh my gosh. What do you think of this possibility? Comment below. Now, I've been one to say forever now, I don't buy that Kyrgios is going to break through big time yet. Sure, it's possible. But when you look at it like that way, the way Mr. Hector Vivas wrote, yeah, the people that win everything, they're going to be a lot older. Federer would be in his mid-40s when Nick Kyrgios is 30. And just think about how good those guys were when they were 30. I mean, Nadal and Kyrgios are only a couple years older than 30. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they did when they were 30. Now, this is the ugly side of Nick Kyrgios here. I don't really like this move. Did Nick Kyrgios make a sly allegation against Rafa? After the match, Kyrgios posted a video of the handshake with Rafa.
Kyrgios,
You saw it in the beginning of the show with my face floating above it, so everyone's clear that it is commentary, fair use of copyrighted materials, rightfully owned by the ATP media. And God bless the ATP media, because we love what they do. Their mission, if I haven't said it before, is our mission, to grow this great sport of tennis. Under the video of the handshake, the caption from Nick Kyrgios includes a needle, a ghost, and robot emojis. Don't doubt yourself. There are plenty of people who will do that for you. I can smell the blood. I can see it. I can smell the blood when I play this dude. Didn't Donald Trump say something exactly like that about Megyn Kelly? Very Trumpian character Nick Kyrgios is, indeed. So, what is this about? Well, according to this news.com.au, the Australian sporting news here, Operation Puerto doping scandal is still yet to be concluded, almost 13 years after police first launched an investigation. Kyrgios' claim that he could smell blood could be interpreted as a reference to 211 bags of blood the World Anti-Doping Agency is in possession of following a seizure operation. Now, the article goes on to say that Spain basically sued them and ordered them to destroy those samples, and they're claiming that there are very big names from the Spanish sporting world who are in this doping scandal, but they're not allowed to release those names. Now, Nadal has been out there. He's denied it. He said, ATP, please show everyone all the drug tests I take. I want complete transparency. Nadal got out in front of it, handled it perfectly. So it is a little bush league, a little low blow for Nick Kyrgios to refer to this. Now, one person who has slandered Nadal in this way, and Nadal's already brought legal action against. Imagine if he brought legal action against Kyrgios. Would they still be allowed to play? I guess they'd have to. Again, crazy TV ratings for tennis, wouldn't it? It's not entirely a bad thing to have a bad guy in your sport, especially when he's so tremendously talented and can do all the damage we've seen him do with his game. And in case, I'll go through this and then we'll get out of here. Yeah, we're almost out of time, so let me just rush through the rest of this Kyrgios stuff really quick. Okay, just for those of you, I'm sure most of the people who watch Coffee Break Tennis already know a lot of this stuff because they're very studious. They read, they research, they watch the tennis. This is the smartest, highest tennis IQ audience in the world. But for those of you who didn't have time to get the latest, I'll tell you this. Kyrgios hit back at Nadal when it was his turn to talk to reporters. This is after Nadal said he lacks respect for the opponent, the crowd himself. He said, I'm different. Rafa's different. He can focus on what he needs to do. He doesn't know the journey I've been on. He doesn't know anything about me. I'm not going to listen at all. That's the way I play. The way he plays is very slow between points. I've got my game. He's got his game. People are different. That's the sport. In honor of Nick Kyrgios. A half-hearted tweener. For the hell of it. A little dig at Nadal there. Saying he takes a long time between serves. I don't like it either, Nick. But we got to respect Nadal. He is one of the three GOAT candidates. Still behind the true GOAT, Roger Federer. Sam Groff, 50-50 record against Nick Kyrgios. This is just further evidence of what I've been saying for a long time now. I don't think Nadal likes Kyrgios. And you know, we got to point out, I don't think any of the big guys like Kyrgios because he's got he's tied with Nadal, 3-3. He's got a 2-0. Did you know that? Nick Kyrgios is 2-0 against Novak Djokovic. Just think about it. He could be a big spoiler. You know, Kyrgios is the kind of guy that could end up helping Roger. Look at it like this. Let's say Roger gets one more, retires. Let's say Djokovic gets to 18. Nadal's at 18. Federer's got 21. And let's say Nick Kyrgios beats Djokovic at Wimbledon one year. When Djokovic is getting a little older and Djokovic is running out of time, kind of where a lot of people think Federer is right now, thinking, oh, Federer doesn't have much time. A lot of people, I read the comments, they don't think Federer is going to win again. No more majors for Fed. Now it's all about just beat Jimmy Connors' record in the smaller tournaments. Some people think that. So imagine Djokovic is in a similar scenario years down the road, almost caught up to Roger Federer, and Nick Kyrgios stops him. Just like you could thank Stan Wawrinka. Joker would be right there with Nadal and real close to Federer if Stan hadn't stopped him in those two finals, the U.S. Open and the French Open final, of course. So Sam Groff is saying he feels the fact that Kyrgios is head-to-head of 3-3 against Nadal is the reason for the Spaniards' tetchiness. What does that mean? I don't think Rafa really likes Nick very much. Nick burst into the scene beating Rafa at Wimbledon. We'll never forget that match. So I think there's probably been something there from day one. To be honest, they're 3-3 head-to-head now, and I don't think there are too many guys in the world Nadal would have a 50-50 record against. He probably just doesn't like it very much. I think that's a good point, Mr. Groff. That volley would have fluffed straight up and probably not even gone over the net. It would have been hideous in real tennis. Just being honest. We believe in total transparency here at Coffee Break Tennis, just like Rafa Nadal. Vamos! All right, last things last. Roger Federer, Nick Kyrgios, Cam Norrie, Dirty Dan Evans, I'm happy to announce, enjoy ATP rankings climb as Stefanos Tsitsipas leapfrogs Rafa Nadal. Not in the regular rankings, in the race. It's from George Belshaw at themetro.co.uk. Roger Federer, down at world number 7 at the start of the week, climbed back inside the top 5 of the ATP leaderboard by claiming a 100th career title in Dubai. Those few of you who were lucky enough to see my last video before it was taken down, we sure did enjoy the celebration, didn't we? 100 titles. Valuable rise given he has 600 points to defend in Indian Wells next week. Yeah, that's going to be key. A little GOAT insurance. Keep him up there in the rankings, even if he has a horrible nightmare in Indian Wells. But I think Roger could do very well in Indian Wells. Oh, and we have a great article from Herr Peter Bodo that we'll do tomorrow when we look at the Indian Wells draw. Late tomorrow night after the draw comes out, we will be there with a show for you. And with no clips of any copyrighted material, so we don't have to worry about the show disappearing. It will be there. We'll look at the draw, and we'll talk a little bit about Peter Bodo's article about what Nadal and Federer can try to do to stop Djokovic at Indian Wells. So take a look at the rankings. Joker's on top. Federer right there at 4, just ahead of Delpo now, who's going to drop 1,000 points pretty soon because he's not healthy. The knee's messed up. We saw that in Delray Beach. Stefanos Tsitsipas, big congratulations to him. Number 10 in the world, 20 years old, pretty amazing. Kyrgios made the biggest jump of all, from 72 to 33. Cam Norrie's inside of the top 50 now. Congrats to him. Not a lot of big weapons, just working really hard and making the most of what he's got. We love to see that, especially people like me who play real tennis and know how hard it is to try to get better at the sport. And Dirty Dan Evans, less than a year after his cocaine thing, Dirty Dan is back in the top 100. Earlier in the year, we saw Roger and Dirty Dan play a match where you get to see Dirty Dan is a fun person to watch. He's got a lot of cool shots, one-hand, backhand, awesome stuff. So happy for Dirty Dan. In the race to London, Tsitsipas is now ahead of Nadal. Well, that's cool, but it's really not that big of a deal considering Nadal hasn't been playing tournaments and Tsitsipas has already played like 7. Or 5, something like that. Not 7. Well, all right, that's it for us. Thank you for watching Coffee Break Tennis. If you are the guy at the ATP Media who watches videos to determine if they've improperly used copyrighted materials owned by ATP Media, comment below. Let us know. What did you think of this show? Are we doing better? Be sure to check in tomorrow when we talk about the Indian Wells draw. See ya!